Hello there. I'd like to just make a quick apology here. I am not going to be able to make a proper go out somewhere and point at something style video this week because I am going away. Usually when I go away, I usually try to find something interesting to sort of point at and say, oh, isn't that interesting? Tell a little bit about it. But I couldn't really find anything. The reason I couldn't find anything, well, actually that's not true. I did find something, but the thing had such scant information that I really couldn't stretch out to make an entire video. So instead, you're going to get a filter video where I sit here and talk to you about something very interesting. This is a video I've been meaning to make for a long time, but I haven't really found a way to really approach it because of the location it's in and the subject matter and the whole thing, because it touches upon an archaeological mystery and stuff that really doesn't really make for a video where I can sort of sit somewhere out in the middle of a street and say something happened here. So let's begin. It all started when I was a history student. I was looking through Canmore, which is a list of archaeological sites in Scotland. It's a real rabbit hole factory for me. And I sort of looked through the list and I saw a entry there which said Broomhall, parentheses, castle, comma, possible, close parentheses. And I saw that and I thought, because I knew there was a castle nearby, Storfen Castle. That is, there's plenty of information on that. We pretty much know where it is, what it looked like, how it worked, who lived there, all that sort of stuff, and when it was demolished. It existed between 1374 and 1797. But this was a complete and utter mystery because there wasn't really that much information. It took me a good while to find any information about this structure, and eventually I found it in a couple of archaeological journals. It was usually just sort of like a paragraph or two every couple, for about 2 years about, what was going on there and what it was and any updates. And basically it started in 1958 whilst they were building the Broomhall estate. The builders, whilst they were preparing the ground, found a structure. Don't quite know what the structure was. It was sort of like a linear set of boulders in the shape of a building, which was obviously some sort of foundation. And within the dirt, they also found, and I'm going to use a 20p piece to sort of represent it, an armorial pendant, which was a small token that was either attached to a horse or attached to a person. If it was attached to a horse, it said, this horse belongs to Lord so-and-so. If it was attached to a person, it meant this person is on the business of Lord so-and-so. And also the pendant had the coat of arms of the Foresters. Now, all this was complicated by another archaeological discovery made about 200 so meters away. Pretty much across the road from where the building site was, they found another thing, a Roman causeway. It was a part of Deer Street, or at least a branch of Deer Street, that was running between Cramond and the rest of the Roman Empire. And instantly that sort of led people to think, okay, we found a Roman road here, we found some sort of chunky structure here, and yes, chunky structure is a technical term. Maybe it is something related to the Roman road. Maybe it's a fortlet. So they brought the archaeologists in, and they brought a set of archaeologists, namely someone from the OS, the Ordnance Survey, someone from Arkhams, which is now Historic Environment Scotland. They, by the way, run Canmore, or ran Canmore. And they also brought in someone from the Society of Antiquities. They all put their heads together and said, this thing is definitely not Roman. And also the fact that they found an armorial pendant probably suggested that the place was probably in use around about the time armorial pendants were being used, aka the medieval period. So that's where the story roughly ends, and fast forward 60 years, here I am, or here I was, swiftly digging through little scraps of information, trying to find out a little bit more about the structure and what it could be. And I have slowly developed a sort of image of what was there and what it could possibly be. Now here's where it gets all into speculation. I'm not an archaeologist. I am a recovering history student with an interest in history. I've got no published papers relating to history or archaeology. I've got a BA in history. That's about it. Oops. All of this is basically a layperson's speculation based on what evidence I have seen. So about half a kilometre away is Corstorphine Castle. Corstorphine Castle was built sometime between 1374 and 1405, where the first Lord Forster died. Now, the Forsters were not the first recorded proprietors of Corstorphine. In fact, the earliest proprietors of Corstorphine, the earliest landowners we know of, are a couple of people recorded in the Ragman Roll in 1296. So the earliest we know that there were people owning land in Corstorphine was 1296. Now, obviously, the laird needs somewhere to sort of put their head down whilst they're surveying their lands at Corstorphine. So obviously, they're going to need some sort of, structure to live in. And it's not going to be a sort of bothy or shack, or a farmhouse out somewhere. It's going to be a relatively hefty structure. So here's my hypothesis. The structure at Broomhall was the laird's house. And this is not just me sort of pulling this up my arse and just speculating. I think the armorial pendant that I found with the coat of arms of the Forsters probably lends a little bit of credence to this hypothesis. Because obviously when they arrived in 1374, the castle that the Forsters built wasn't going to be built in a year. When they came to Corstorphine in 1374, obviously they're going to need a place to stay. So either the Forsters or someone working at the Forsters would go up to the structure and probably stay there for a couple of years. And at some point, they probably had their armorial pendant either attached to a horse or attached to a servant, and their armorial pendant fell off and went into the ground. So obviously when the whole thing was demolished and all that was left of the foundations was there, in 1958 when they dug it up, they found the structure, or at least the foundation of the structure, with the armorial pendant. I personally think that the structure they found at Broomhall was most likely a laird's house. Not quite a castle, obviously, somewhere with big thick walls that could keep in heat and maybe defend off marauding bandits and stuff like that, but definitely not a castle. And that was quite possibly where the lairds of Corstorphine before the Forsters stayed whilst they were living in Corstorphine. I know this video was very rambly and probably very boring. I've done this completely unscripted. This is one of these things where I have to sort of quickly slam a camera in front of my face and sort of make a video to chuck out there. I'd just like to end the video for just saying thank you all for staying subscribed. I will hopefully make a better video in the not too distant future, probably next week, or definitely next week, fingers crossed. And I also would like to plug another channel. I have an older channel, which I will link somewhere up here and down here. And I'm planning on reviving as a vlogging channel. It does have a couple of videos that are historical nature, but also some videos that are just general interest videos. And also a couple of videos that are just trash. But I really want to sort of revive it into a general use vlogging channel. The channel is called Abby's Vlogging Channel, Abby's Vloggers Channel. I don't quite remember the name. The name seems to switch a bit. I think I'll just call it Abby's Vlogging Channel. And you can find it either up in a little box up at the top or just down in the doobly-doo. And I hope to see you then. Goodbye.